morning at the meeting of planning and zoning to order. Pledge. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Your roll call.
Yes.
Approval of minutes from previous meeting.
I would ask for one correction. If we could refer to everybody with their last name.
Or by their last name, slightly confusing.
Yes.
I noticed that, so is that a problem? It's written as Chairman Lee and then a J. Lee is a member.
Because they had a G. Lee and a J. Lee.
Well, I'm Chairman Lee.
Chairman
No, it's not supposed to be Chairman Lee. That's an error.
Well, it is kind of, but not really.
No, it should be, well, it's an error.
And I was referred to 3 times
Yeah,
as
that's
Chairman
right.
Lee, so that was
These ones, and these
really,
ones are the.
these ones?
Now, in the previous minutes, I did do that.
The ones that were emailed out.
Deputies.
Not really that critical. There's the first to J. Lee. Chairman Lee noted there was a motion and a second on the floor.
Could you,
I'm on page 4 of 11. The 5, I'm sorry. Consider final plat, try about that.
that's an error. I apologize.
And there was that one and 2 more, I believe. And with 2 leads on the board going in.
Well, yeah, that's where the J and the G,
Yes.
but any Chairman Lee is incorrect. And where else that appears, and I know it was in there in the previous, yeah, at the end of the Smith, at the very last paragraph.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll
Make a note. Any more corrections? Any motions?
I move we approve the minutes as corrected.
Motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Proposal to change M1 zoning height restriction.
There is in the memo, I described the current status of our ordinance is that we have a 100-foot height limit in M1 zoning. The current MFA tower is 162 feet, according to Jim Gibson. Spoke to him today. It was built before 1961 and is grandfathered or is a legal non-conforming use. They would like to build a new structure, and actually after I had issued the building permit, I thought about height restrictions and looked at the code, and the code says that the proposed structure at 142 feet would be in violation of the ordinance. Most other I did not find a city where I could find, did not find a city where there was not an exception with I found several cities that had an exception, then I found Harrisonville that had a 150-foot limit. In any of those cities, this structure would be legal. I am sure there are cities out there in which a structure over 142 feet would be in violation of their ordinance. So I'm sure there is somewhere out there with this, that we are not I'm not trying to tell you that we're the most restrictive city anywhere. However, they would not be able to continue with their project if we do not change the height limit or make an exception as a number of these other cities do. Columbia, I gave you two different options if you choose. One would be to make a change in the, you could eliminate any height restriction in M1, which is what Columbia has. Another option would be, which I have in here as option B. Option A would be to alter the language in section 31-45 for height, yard, and area exceptions and additional regulations, and specifically exempt those structures, flagpoles, chimneys, cooling towers, electric display signs, which we may not want to add to our exceptions, elevator bulkheads, penthouses, finials, gas tanks, grain elevators, etc. And then a third option, which isn't in here, is to keep the 100-foot limit in M1 and add exceptions for flagpoles, chimneys, cooling towers. I would leave out electric display signs, elevator bulkheads, grain elevators, gas water tanks, and add that as an exception specifically in M1.
Well, it's 100 foot is what we have now.
100 foot
Right.
with no exception.
What do most of the other cities have? Or that either nothing, or it was something higher?
Several cities, Moberly, Mexico, Sedalia, have somewhere in there an exception for certain structures.
But what is their height limit?
Their height limit varies from as low as, for Fulton, for example, is 45 feet. And then they have an exception for television towers, et cetera, et cetera. It includes elevator bulkheads, I believe it.
45 feet sounds excessively low.
Yeah, but they give an exception for this type of structure.
I mean, do we want to keep the 100 feet and just put some exceptions in there?
That's what, I would think we want to keep the 100 feet and then add exceptions, unless you want to lower the, I don't, see, I'm not,
Can't imagine why we
I
would.
wouldn't, you can't imagine.
Are there limitations on the exceptions though?
Yeah, well, there are these particular structures that are limited. These are, for a grain elevator or a chimney, in those cities where they have that specific exemption, no, there's no limit to their height. They're exempted, and therefore you could theoretically build a 1,000-foot elevator, although I don't think you could engineer such a.
But, I think I saw in here, one that they had unlimited height restrictions except to what the federal aviation standards
Yes.
would require.
Yeah, that's Sedalia. They have an agriculture zone where they permit these elevators, and they say basically there's no height exception up to the FAA. Boone County's, I also looked at Boone County's, I didn't put that in here. Theirs is it's done completely differently. You get more feet of height the farther back you set your structure from the setback. And I think there's an ultimate height. It was kind of cumbersome. It was county language, and nothing against.
Boone County is calculated as if it falls, it would fall without
Yeah.
breaking. And most things that are higher actually collapse inward rather than fall in a straight line out. And counties are that way, and Boone County says you gotta have a foot of setback for every foot height.
So those are different ways to go about it.
Any other suggestions?
Well, I think exceptions. I mean, there's some obvious exceptions like the antennas, church steeples, and elevators. That would take the obvious exceptions. Although if he goes 100 feet on a church steeple, that would be a pretty tall church steeple.
It'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we need
Right.
necessarily two churches if they, if it's over 100 feet, but you can always do a variance or something like that.
The language that I suggested in option A, ornamental towers are included, standpipes. If we go with the language in option A and amend we have a Article 12, Section 3145, which suggests that there might be exceptions at some time. But those exceptions are not spelled out anywhere else in our code. If we just were to amend that to add the words in any given zoning districts for about the parapet walls, and then change the last words to take out the may be erected in accordance with something that might change later, and just put exempt from height restrictions. We use that. I would suggest that maybe we not put electronic display signs in.
Well, I think
Yeah, I think we
that's
can
one
probably agree
that would
with
be a
that.
good one to take out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in any given zoning district.
There's a period after that. That's only about parapet walls, in any given zoning district. So if your height restriction in R1 is 35 feet, you could have a parapet wall that would go an additional 6 feet above that. If you put, crenellations and around a tower at the top of your house.
Gargoyle oils.
Yeah, gargoyles. The things that like we have at the top of City Hall.
All right. So what do we need to do?
The commission may wish to make a motion to amend section 31-45 of the Centralia City Code to the language included in option A, with the exception of striking the words electric display signs.
All right, don't we still have to have a public hearing?
This is a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. The Board of Aldermen have to have a public hearing, and it has to be advertised ahead of time.
But we don't have to have a public hearing on this.
I'd make that motion, that Matt just recommended, and also leaving out the electronic display signs, going with option A.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry. Discussion of comprehensive plan update.
Trying to give you guys a little bit of an outline of what's going on in my head to see if it's something similar to what might be going on with if it pleases the Planning and Zoning Commission to proceed this way. I can't say that I'm thrilled about the idea of that many meetings, but I think it'd be very useful to have to divide up into four different groups, invite comment, hold discussion, a couple of meetings in each one of those four groups, and bring the chair or vice chair of each of those groups back together for the final recommendation. A large part of that will be taking the work that Lynn had already done on the comprehensive plan, presenting data to these committees that have to do with their particular concerns. For instance, I would be looking at, for economic development, whatever trends or whatever, the best data we have on, population, et cetera, to each one of the committees, and looking for recommendations on, also giving them what CREDI's goals are, have, READY's goals, the chamber, have them come up with what the priorities for the community are. The EEZ district has a specific list of priority businesses to seek in the EEZ district, and then there's a longer list of allowable, they're federal government gives them a code, but different types of businesses, NAICS codes, that are also allowed in that district. And then produce a document in the end, which would be available online, easily looked through, a PDF document where you could select the particular part of the comprehensive plan you were interested in, something that may get not a lot of hits, but I'm thinking if you're interested in moving a business to Centralia or something like that, it might be valuable to see what our priorities are. Goal is to have policies in place out of this process so that when we are looking at choosing streets to build, storm sewer projects, that sort of thing, eventually we kind of have, not necessarily this street goes next, but these are our goals. We would like to have connectivity, we'd like to have a network of streets where we have at least a 32-foot wide street for all, all the connectors or collectors should be 32 to 38 feet wide and our goal would be to do it by a certain time, come up with a budget on that kind of thing. That's what I see a comprehensive plan looking at our current zoning, looking at potential for growth, and making a recommendation as to where we might see continued residential growth, where we might suggest would be good areas inside and even outside of the city limits for residential, industrial, commercial growth. A plan, a document that boards in the future can use to inform their decisions in the future. That's what I'm looking for. So what I'm looking from you guys is people who would work well on this process, and what area are you most interested in participating yourself? I'd like to see, ideally, aldermen and P&Z members on each one of these committees. And I'd like to, and as the schedule suggests, try and have a plan for adoption in January. For any individual that we're talking about, maybe 2 or 3 meetings, not 1,000. But this is not a visioning project. Not that there's anything wrong with a visioning project, but that's not what this is. But
I talked to one individual that's verbally committed to help. I didn't exactly break down the tiers of, but Jim Edmonds said that he would help.
And I'd like to, at the end, gather names together, and maybe you have an idea where they might serve, but we may have 20 people who are suggested to do land use, and nobody for something else, so we might kind of mix and match.
You're looking at the first meeting in August, possibly?
Possibly.
I'd volunteer for community facilities.
volunteer for the financial resources, either CEZ or to
Okay.
wherever.
Community facilities, would that be something you'd want to approach Coach about?
No, I was volunteering for this stuff.
No, I mean,
I would think
he said it
either.
would help, but I didn't really specify as to where we needed help.
Yeah. Oh, coaching.
Yes.
That would be a place for it.
I mean,
Since he used to be the park director
if schools,
in schools, yeah, he was a school teacher, coach.
I'd give you preference of land use, but I would leave my name there where you could put people wherever you needed to have shorting, that would work with anybody. Like we have shorting somewhere, back over there.
Well, this is, you just keep thinking about it. You have to fill it out. Anyway, I think it's gonna be a valuable document for this board, or for this commission, the Board of Aldermen, the Parks Board, etc. And that's all I got. If you guys want to discuss this, that's all I've got on discussion of comprehensive plan, unless you guys want to go into it.
We want to have a meeting towards the end of July to work on an organizational type meeting.
I would like to, by the end, in July early, sit down with you two gentlemen, Chairman Smith, Mayor, and Keith, take the names, and yes, call me toward the end of July. First, end of July, very early August, and then, that's my goal.
any more discussion on comprehensive plan update? See none. As may arise. I see none. Motion?
Move we adjourn.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Those in favor say aye.